Look at this island. At first glance, it seems pretty ordinary. There are some buildings, roads, intersections. The island even has a name, Fiery Cross. What if I told you that just a couple of years ago, this island looked like this? There was nothing here. Not even the island itself, just a coral reef. For several years, China has been breaking new records in the methods, tools, and speed with which it expands its territory in the South China Sea. In reality, other countries are doing similar things, but their projects take years. China pulled it off in just a few months. Right before the world's eyes, a structure has emerged in the middle of the sea, and it's already being dubbed the Great Wall of Sand. How did China manage this? The South China Sea is a special territory that several countries would like to claim. There are 6 of them in total: China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Brunei. So China isn't the first to want to reclaim land in the sea. This is what the Malaysian Swallow Reef looks like. It's an artificial island located about 186 miles north of the city of Labuan. Originally, the reef was built for the Malaysian Navy, but later it was turned into a diving resort. Now, a lot of marine life inhabits its waters. Basically, it's a whole nature reserve where a military base used to be. Some islands in the South China Sea were also built and expanded by Vietnam. But all these projects pale in comparison to China's land reclamation efforts. The scale is just way too different. Let's just compare. We'll take the data from 2016. Vietnam created about 120 acres of land. Malaysia created 69 acres, the Philippines 14 acres, and Taiwan just over 7 acres. Compared to them, China's 3,200 acres of new land looks impressive. Of course, a lot of time has passed since this data was collected, and the artificial land area of these countries has probably increased, but no one can keep up with China. And by the way, don't think that the idea of artificial islands or even expanding territories this way is something new. The ancient Egyptians were building artificial islands, as were people in prehistoric Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. The same was done by the Aztecs, Micronesians, and many others. And despite all of China's achievements, the largest artificial island today is in the Netherlands. It's called Flevopolder, and it was created by draining 375 square miles of land using dikes, dams, and pumping out the water. Oh, and just so you know, Hong Kong International Airport is located on an artificial island too. It covers more than 8 square miles, making it the second largest artificial island. So we're smoothly transitioning to a pretty obvious question. Why does China even need artificial islands? In principle, China's islands in the South China Sea already existed, but most of them were too small for any major construction. Many of these islands were actually coral reefs, which are useless, unless you're a fish, of course. As a result, China launched an effort to significantly expand the territories it already controls. The official reason for creating these islands was to improve the working and living conditions of people residing on the islands. It's assumed that with the new infrastructure, fishermen and merchant sailors will gain shelter, navigational aid, and better weather forecasting. It's true that neighboring countries don't agree with these reasons, but I won't get into the details. Politics is a tricky thing, so let's leave it to the channels that specialize in it. Instead, I'll tell you that China's problems with a shortage of land due to its large population are well known and have been for a long time. The amount of farmland per capita in China is about 40% less than the global average. Back in 2011, analysts pointed out that the country simply doesn't have enough land to grow crops, and so crops like soybeans have to be imported. But China's facing a space problem not only for the living, but also for the dead. As strange as it may sound, just 10 years ago, the forecasts were grim. Space is running out at 3,000 cemeteries in China, and soon there will simply be no place left to bury the dead. To give you an idea, 3,000 is the total number of cemeteries in the entire country. In the US, for example, there are 50,000 of them. To address the issue, the government offers incentives to those who opt for cremation instead of burial, and also promotes sea burials in every possible way. But that's a whole different story. The point is, China really needs land. Dead people don't need artificial islands, of course. They're for the living. And China's making them. The construction is concentrated around the Spratly Island chain, a group of small islands and underwater reefs lying close to the center of the South China Sea. On the 7 reefs where there's been the most activity, the Chinese managed to create 5 square miles of additional land. Given the scale, it's not surprising that the project got unofficially named the Great Wall of Sand. It's tough to figure out exactly what the new islands look like because getting close to them is nearly impossible. Among all the countries that have built islands in the South China Sea, only the Philippines lets outsiders in, and Malaysia too with its diving resort. Journalists won't get an invitation to these Chinese islands even if they try really hard. No entry allowed. There's one thing we do know. From a lonely coral head sticking out of the waves by just 3 feet, Fiery Cross Reef has expanded astonishingly, growing to over 500 acres. That's about 280 football pitches, or one Monaco. There are no football pitches or city-states on the islands, of course. First, a 10,827-foot-long airport runway was built on Fiery Cross. The runway's long enough here for both fighter jets and big transport planes to land and take off, and also all sorts of commercial ones. There are also dams, a deep-water port, roads, several tennis and basketball courts, hospitals, farms, radar installations, and other military facilities on Fiery Cross. They've also built protective concrete reservoirs on Subi Reef and Mischief Reef, hangars for planes, lighthouses. In short, it seems like they've built nearly everything on these islands with the exception of cemeteries. But before this could happen, the islands had to be created. The first signs of construction were noticed from a U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon reconnaissance plane. On the plane, apart from the military, there was a CNN reporter. He was the one who saw the dozens of Chinese ships anchored near the future islands. Their crews worked around the clock for weeks, excavating sand and stones from the ocean floor. Sure, these weren't ordinary ships. They look like this. They're called dredgers and belong to the technical fleet. Usually, these vessels are used for dredging work and extracting non-metallic construction materials. In general, that's exactly what they were doing. They were lifting sand from the bottom. Then, through a system of pipes, it was sent to the designated island where this bottom sand was used to create new patches of land. Remember the ships. I'll get back to them a bit later. Do you already get how it all works? Sand from the ocean floor slowly piles up above the high tide line, and now instead of water, we have land. Next, the sand is leveled with machines like bulldozers, compacted, and a reliable platform for building is created. Once the desired area is achieved, workers set up barriers around the island to stop erosion and storm tides. Then the actual construction of buildings and other objects starts. The construction of the Great Wall of Sand was carried out from the end of 2013 to the end of 2016. By 2015, more than 2,000 acres of new land had been created, and by December 2016, the area had reached 3,200 acres. Now, a couple of words about the ships that extracted sand from the seabed. They combine two key dredging methods, excavation and suction. First, a spinning cutting tool dislodges the sediment, and then it gets drawn into a pipe. The sand is drawn in by a pump capable of handling all types of soil, from sand and gravel to heavily compacted and hard materials like clay, soft rock, and even thin layers of solid rock. The pump directs the soil to other pumps and then through a floating pipeline to the shore, as was the case with the Chinese islands. Or if the soil isn't needed right away, it can be loaded onto a barge and then transported to where it's needed. These ships are used when you need to find useful minerals, build a port, create a reservoir, a body of water, or, well, build an island. It works just as well. It's known that China used hundreds of dredgers and barges, including the massive self-propelled dredger Tianjinghao. Built in 2009 in China, Tianjinghao is a 417-foot vessel and is regarded as the largest of its type in Asia. This ship alone transported 160,000 cubic feet of materials per hour, enough to fill almost 2 Olympic pools. And it wasn't doing it by itself. It's no surprise the island was made so fast. Construction is definitely a good thing, but the island was created on a reef, and reefs, as you know, are very fragile. How did they even survive this? In order to fill 7 artificial islands with a combined area of 5 square miles, China had to demolish the surrounding reefs and extract between 1.41 and 1.76 billion cubic feet of sand and coral. This seems like not the greatest choice for the environment. Sediment can also wash back into the sea, forming plumes that can simply smother marine life. Add to that heavy metals, oil, and other chemicals from ships and coastal facilities. In short, it's all really bad. And we can't accurately assess the damage because scientists and researchers just don't have access to the islands. Still, the information available to us is enough to be concerning. These are the remnants of the corals after the boats destroyed them, and this is a massive wrecked seashell lying among the dead corals that are left from boat operations. On the left are corals in their natural undamaged environment, and on the right is what resulted from building islands. Experts say that dredging operations kill almost everything living around coral reefs. In response, Chinese authorities claimed they started restoring the reefs that were destroyed. How true is this? Hard to say, because, well, you get it, no access allowed. What about the islands themselves? It's clear they were built with a lot of effort, but is there a risk they could be destroyed? The combination of construction errors and climate change could make these artificial islands unstable. Given how quickly they were built, it's only natural to expect that the quality has suffered, and it's not just speculation. That's what some experts believe. According to rumors, the concrete on these new islands is already crumbling, and their foundations are becoming sponge-like due to environmental factors. Also, experts doubt these islands will withstand a super typhoon. Of course, all this is just rumors, theories, and speculation. There's no reliable information available publicly, and it's unlikely that it will ever be. Still, there's a risk that the artificial island could eventually collapse and sink into the sea. Don't forget that sea levels keep rising. Recently, I was talking about a Japanese airport, which was also built on an artificial island. Since it opened its doors and runways in September 1994, this airport has sunk more than 36 feet. And some engineers believe that by 2056, the island will sink another 13 feet, reaching sea level. There are even photos taken in bad weather. You can see that the airport is already getting flooded. Stopping the process is possible, but it's expensive. Japan's already spent over $148 million on building a seawall to save the airport, but it keeps sinking by 3 inches a year. I'm curious, did the Chinese authorities take their neighbors' experiences into account? Are they planning to do anything to prevent flooding on the islands? Or maybe they've already done something. Because water as it rises can wash away the sand of an island, like it supposedly happens with the world, the artificial archipelago, and the United Arab Emirates. Will the fortifications on the Chinese islands be enough to resist the sea's pressure? And now it's time for the most important question. Can you just dump islands into the sea and expand your territory indefinitely? Well, as we mentioned recently, countries can claim rights to everything within 12 miles from their coastline. The new island also has a coastline, so within 12 miles of it, everything supposedly belongs to the country that created it. Does this mean that with each new artificial island, the coastline increases and consequently the entire territory of the country expands? Well, not exactly. The International Convention states that underwater structures like reefs are not considered property. So any artificial structures built on such foundations do not extend the territory of a country, at least under current laws. It's a tricky legal aspect, and it turns out that land expansion doesn't equal country territory expansion. So you can expand the land, build islands on your territory as much as you want. You can fill in all the water bodies in the sea within those 12 miles, turning the area into one big beach. Ecologists will definitely be against it, and common sense as well. But from a legal standpoint, the country has the right to do so. But if you start building islands beyond that zone, it'll lead to conflicts with other countries. So don't do that. Yet another island. Recent observations show that China seems to be planning to build another artificial island in the South China Sea. In May this year, the Coast Guard of neighboring Philippines posted a video showing crushed corals accumulated in enough quantity to change the height of sandbanks. The hypothetical island is located within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. This caused a lot of discontent. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs has denied the rumors, but what's really happening in the South China Sea will only be revealed with time. New method. In the same May 2024, there was news that Chinese scientists developed a new method for building on soft coral sand. Now they're suggesting building large tunnels under each island. What do tunnels have to do with it? It was once thought that the soft coral sand in this region was simply unsuitable for underground construction, so it was believed that you couldn't dig anything in it. But the functions of artificial islands are growing. More staff are being placed on them, and the living spaces on the islands are starting to deplete. They want to make up for their shortage by building underground structures. Scientists suggest not just digging tunnels, but creating a proper living space underground. Well, or turning that space into storage facilities, whatever works. Not enough islands. In March 2024, news came out that Hong Kong plans to begin making new artificial islands. Yes, once more. It's a mega project for land reclamation near Lantau Island. If things go as expected, then compared to the existing territories, the new islands will look like this. Here's what the area where the construction is planned looks like right now. Well, there's really a lot of available space. Why not use it? Here they plan to create a third main business district on artificial islands covering a total area of about 4,200 acres. The total cost of the project is estimated at $73.8 billion US. If it all works out, the islands could accommodate between 400,000 and 700,000 people, plus about 200,000 new jobs will be created. Expanding underwater. Building over water? How about projects underwater? China is accelerating its efforts to design and construct a livable deep-sea platform in the South China Sea. It's expected to be an oceanic space station installed at depths of up to 10,000 feet below the surface. The project is ranked second among China's 100 major science and technology priorities. If it all works out, a long-term habitable station at this depth will be the first one of its kind. So, we'll see. Well, you owe me a like. See you later.